So today we're going to take a look at Flutter, which is a new sort of mobile framework similar to React and Xamarin for creating mobile apps with only using one code base. So Flutter is based on the Dart language and it's being developed by Google. And today we're just going to look through a sort of basic Flutter app and the advantages to using it. So getting started, we can use install on OS X, because that's what I'm using today. It can also be installed on Windows and on Linux. So the tutorial for installing is pretty detailed. Just to follow these steps and have a sort of basic knowledge of the command line. So you need to install the SDK, which is this zip file here. So one tool that includes is Flutter Doctor, which is a sort of internal program which just checks the installation and makes sure that everything that it needs to is installed and it's all running okay. So I've downloaded and I've unzipped the folder into my home directory. I'm just going to open a new terminal window at the folder and then run the Flutter Doctor command, which will make sure that it's installed and tell me if there's anything else I need to sort out. So you can see that it's found an issue in the Android toolchain, which I can go back and sort if needed, but I'm going to be running on a simulator today on iOS, so I don't need to sort that at the moment. As you can see, the iOS toolchain is as a tick, so I'm all ready to go. So in addition to installing Flutter, if you're developing on iOS, you'll also need to install Xcode and set up the simulator, which is all detailed how to do here, and set up one or two other things through Homebrew. I've already done that, so that's ready to go, but if you need to, then obviously just go through the instructions. It's quite clear to see how you do it. They also include details for the Android setup, which is similar in they use Android Studio and the Android SDK. So to create Flutter apps, they recommend you use Android Studio or Visual Studio Code. Today I'm using Android Studio. It seems like it's the most optimized Flutter and built in. So here you can see my Android Studio window. I'm just going to preferences and install the plugins. So you can see that Flutter is already installed. And so is Dart. So those are the only two things you need to install through Android Studio to be able to develop for Flutter. So now I'm going to set up a new project. So I go to New Flutter Project. I just set up some configurations, the name and details. I'm going to set the domain to just test and then finish. And what it will do, it will set up a new Flutter project with the sort of default Flutter app. So here is my Flutter app that I've set up. So this is the code for the basic Flutter app. You can see that it's split into classes. So my home page state, and the my home page state includes a widget. So most UI elements in Flutter are known as widgets, and to create a UI, you just have widgets that are sort of put together and laid out differently. So in this basic app, you can see that there's a column widget, and then these both inside the column. There's two text widgets as well, which tell you how many times you've pushed this button. So I'm just going to run this app quickly on the simulator, so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll make one or two small changes. And also show off one of the main benefits of Flutter. So the building and deploying, for Android Studio at least, is all done through Android Studio, and it uses the command tools of Xcode to build and deploy. So you don't need to launch any other programs. It's all done through one IDE onto the simulator or onto your device, which is quite nice and streamlined. So now launching the app, you can see it's very simple. it's just a button and you press and it increments a counter. You'll also see that the sort of default design language is Google's Material Design. So we'll now show one of the main benefits of Flutter, which is the hot reload feature. So you can see I've just changed the text to I, used the hot reload, and it's updated it in about 1 second. This could be very useful for laying out UI elements. I'll just add in some more text. Press the hot reload again, and it adds in the text without changing anything else on the page. So this could be very useful for, I think just in general, when you make an app, you don't need to recompile and run, which is especially an issue on iOS. If you make a change in the storyboard, then it takes a long time to recompile and put everything together, and you need to run the app from start again. Whereas one of the main benefits with this is that you don't need to restart running the app. You can see that the number of times I pressed the button hasn't actually changed. It's just added some new text. So now we'll look at adding in some other features. So what I've added here is a variable value and also a function that will change that variable. And I'm going to use this function in the widget that I'm going to add. So I've just added in a slider widget here. So you can see you create the slider widget by doing new slider and then passing the parameters, so the min and the max values that you want, and then the colors that you want. You can see that the value of the slider you want it to give, I've specified as the variable underscore value, and the function that I want it to call when the slider value is changed is the function I specified at the top. So by doing this, I can change the value in the text whenever the slider is changed. So now I'll run it. I've just pressed full restart there. I could have also pressed hot reload. And you can see on the right that the slider has been implemented with the two colors that I chose. The value is 0 as specified in the variable. And I can now change the slider and it will change the text as well. So now I'll just change the color of the slider, press the hot reload button, and you can see that now the active color of the slider is blue. I can still add buttons. I'll just change the maximum of the slider now, and you can see it automatically changes the position of the dot on the slider. And allows me to go up to 20 now. So using the hot reload is very useful when laying out UI and just doing general functionality of the app. So now I'll add in a iOS style widget, so an iOS style slider. You can see that it just gets added into the same way that the Android one does. It's just a different style. So this is useful if you want to still develop for cross-platform, but you want to maybe specify iOS style widgets for iOS, but Android style widgets for Android. I'll just change the max values so they'll line up. And it's using the same function as the Android widget, so it changes the text as well as changing the Android widget. I'll just hot reload to change the color again, and yeah. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it's given you a nice introduction to Flutter as a sort of framework for making cross-platform apps, and it's going to be interesting to see how Flutter can compete against React Native and Xamarin going forward.